Welcome. Today I am going to use a couple of real life examples of how overdoing it can actually push things away. So this is diving into masculine energetics and how we can try and do things too fast and push and actually push things out of our way and make them less attainable, and also how we waste time. However, I've got a couple of updates for you. I have got the free release masterclass coming up on Thursday, the 13th of January at 11 a.m. New Zealand time. I always run this live because I love the interaction with all of you amazing people. And some people have been asking me about the release 6-week course, which is also run live. However, I only open the doors to that after I've done the release masterclass. This is a really good way for you to get to know me and actually find out if you want to work with me in this group. So the release masterclass is Thursday, 13th of January. That's the 12th of January, Wednesday, 12th of January for those of you in the States, Canada, and UK. There is a link that you can register at. It is theartoflisteningtoyourbody.com/release. And when you go onto that page, you'll be able to see all of the time zone conversions, and you will get your Zoom link, and you'll get some reminders to make sure that you don't miss out. Make sure you turn up live, especially if you are thinking about joining the course that starts in February, because there will be a little offer that will just be shared in the chat on the live Zoom. So I'm going to be going in depth about the actual release process that I use with my clients step by step, and sharing stories of what happens when people do this work. And I'm going to be bringing on someone who has done a lot of work with me. They have done the release course. They have worked with me one-to-one and gone on to do my practitioner training, and now is part of my mastermind. And they have had some amazing turnarounds in their life and in their health. I'm going to be sharing their story about their fertility journey, chronic pain, autoimmune disease, and a whole bunch more. So make sure you register for that. I will put the link in the podcast notes, and I would love to see you there, and feel free to share this with anyone. So let's dive into the topic of today's episode, which is using some of my personal experiences around using a little bit too much masculine energy. I was sharing with one of my workshop groups, the Vision group, because someone started talking about mosquitoes, and it just reminded me of a couple of stories. Anyway, my brain goes on all sorts of tangents when people start asking questions or sharing things. Now, I am currently recovering from a broken ankle, or I would prefer to say a healing ankle. I had a very mundane fall off my bike on a very easy trail. I'm sad to say that it was nothing spectacular, and I heard a nice crack in my ankle, and later found out via x-ray that it was broken, but it's healing. And that's almost a whole nother story that I could do a whole episode on. But this morning I found myself thinking, oh, if I take more of this, do you think it would be better? So I have loaded myself up with all the supplements and every remedy out there that I know that's natural to help bones heal. And the bottle on this bone builder supplement says, take 4 a day. And I thought, I wonder if it would be better if I took a few more. What if I took 3 in the morning and 3 later on? Now, I was thankful that I had to host a group Zoom call for one of my groups, because I thought, if these 3 don't sit very well in my tummy, I'm not going to be at my best for these people. And I always like to show up at my best. So I ended up taking the 2, and I thought, well, I better follow the instructions. They're there for a reason. I'll take 2 in the morning and I'll take 2 at night. Don't push it. And more is not better. And I know this. I know this from when I was an osteo, when I was prescribing herbs, that more is not better. But there was this thing inside of me that thought, well, maybe if I take more, maybe this is going to speed up the recovery of my bone. But the thing is, the bone is going to heal when it's going to heal. And I need to trust my body that it is going to do this. And I need to be patient with it. So putting more of this good stuff in my body does not mean it's going to speed anything up. And then it made me remember a story. So I talked about mozzies, and you're like, why are you talking about bone supplements and a broken ankle that's healing when you started talking about mozzies? But this is how the conversation started today, and I just wanted to share it with you. So I remember, well, this person started talking about mozzies. It's like, man, it's still kind of my worst nightmare, but it definitely was previously. Like, I wouldn't really like to go to places if I knew that I was going to get bitten, because I used to react very, very badly to bites. Now, I had never lived in New Zealand and been bitten by a sandfly. New Zealand is amazing because it doesn't have snakes, it doesn't have deadly spiders, so you can go pee in the bush and you don't have to worry about anything eating you. But they have these little things called sandflies, which are kind of nicer than mozzies because they don't make that annoying sound, but you also don't feel them until they've bitten you. And this was many years ago. For some of you who know my pain story being my skin and cystic acne and massive rashes, this actually happened before I reached that tipping point with my health. And I had been bitten by a sandfly, and I started scratching it because that reaction of scratching felt really good. I now know not to scratch them, because if you don't scratch them, they just go away, but you have to sit there with the irritation and the feeling of wanting to scratch it. And it was incredibly itchy, and they were getting very inflamed. My skin was starting to get raw. And when I would go to sleep at night, because it was during the summer, my feet would get really hot, and they love eating that part of your body. My feet would get really hot, I would scratch, and I was starting to get really miserable because I was losing sleep. And I am definitely someone who prioritizes sleep over anything. It's my remedy. My daughter complains about anything. I'm like, you know what, Violet? I know you're going to tell me to go to sleep. It's not that easy. I'm like, it's pretty basic, but it's good. It works. So I was not happy that I was losing sleep, and I was practicing as an osteopath at this time. I think I was in my first couple of years of working, and I've never called in sick at that point. I had never called in sick for work or anything like that. And I took antihistamines because I was desperate. I was like, I've got to get rid of this itch, and they didn't work. I was at work and I was feeling pretty groggy, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've got this new patient. I've got to be at my best. What is there? I'm just not feeling great. So instead of listening to my body and maybe admitting that I wasn't feeling that great and saying I need to go home, I saw instant coffee there. I'm not a coffee drinker. It doesn't usually affect me. And I thought, well, I'm feeling tired. People seem to drink coffee to wake themselves up in the night. I'm going to take a really strong shot of maybe a couple of tablespoons of this instant coffee and a little bit of hot water. And I just slammed it down. But I don't think the combination of antihistamines and coffee was the right thing to do. And it kind of sent me into a spin and what I imagine feels like intense anxiety and a little bit panicky. My heart was definitely racing. And I was just like, I cannot treat this person. And they were sitting in the waiting room. The lady I was working for, she was really lovely. I said, oh my gosh, I'm really sorry, but I just cannot treat this person. I couldn't even go out and tell them. I felt terrible. But anyway, I didn't. And I ended up catching a taxi home. And I was living in a flat at the time. And my flatmate's girlfriend did 5 elements acupuncture, which I think is amazing. And she said, well, I could stick some needles in you and help you. And I was like, whatever, throw whatever you want at me. I will try anything right now. It's a little bit like with my healing ankle. I'm doing a lot of things. And to support my body. And she put the needles in some pretty unpleasant places, like between my toes and next to my toenails in very sensitive spots. But I thought I'll give it a go. The antihistamines obviously don't work. I've done something to my system, throwing instant coffee into it. And it was amazing. It was the first night in 3 weeks that I actually slept and I no longer itched. And of course, I asked her what she did, and she did this type of acupuncture that was removing heat from my body. And I've since learned that my body does store and carry quite a bit of heat. So it was really fascinating that that modality could shift something so quickly that antihistamines, the medicine, couldn't help me with. Now, this was actually before I learned about all of this psychosomatic work and this emotional work, and things like itching and not being able to sit there and observe it it's a reaction. It's a stress reaction, and kind of feels good to itch a scratch, right? However, this acupuncture, this 5 elements acupuncture, was incredible. That I was able to have my first night peaceful, non-itchy rest. And I love the Eastern philosophies. I love a lot of these ancient traditional medicines because they are rooted in a lot of systems that are crazy when you actually go to study. I think acupuncturists study for about 5 years, and then all of the study beyond that. So I didn't need to understand it, and I was willing to give it a go, and it worked. So even though something might not make sense, I encourage you to give it a go. Now, I'm leading into multiple stories here. So an osteo friend saw that I had injured my ankle and suggested that I get this thing called a QRS mat. I don't even remember what it stands for. It's got something to do with electromagnetic pulses, and it's used for so many different ailments. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give this thing a go. I'm going to do everything I can to my ankle alongside resting, eating really healthy, and being mindful, not standing on it and injuring it again. So I am definitely moving a lot slower, but I thought, well, I'll get this QRS mat. Now, in the meantime, I've got to wait for it for, I don't know, maybe up to a week. And I remember that my friend had something very similar, a mat that had these electromagnetic frequencies. So he was really lovely, and he said, I'd love you to borrow it until you get your one, and dropped it off. So being me, who does often like to do a lot of things, it's my pitta nature that has a lot of the heat in my body, is I just wanted to use it. I wanted to get in there, and I laid it down on my bed, got it all ready, plugged it in, and there's all these buttons and lights on it. And I thought, all right, I'll just turn it on. I'll press every button to get all the lights on, and there's this dial in it, low to high, and I'll just crank it up all the way. It says 75. I figured that 75 was something about some sort of electromagnetic frequencies. And then I'm lying on this thing going, this is getting pretty hot. So I decided to Google it while I was on the mat, which I don't think you're meant to do because of the electromagnetic frequencies. Anyhow, I Googled it, looked up the brand and directions, and it's not quite the same mat as what I bought. So here I am cooking because it's like an infrared electromagnetic frequency thing, and it's a sauna if you stick a blanket over the top of yourself. So I'm like, right, that dial means I was cranking it up to 75 degrees Celsius. I'll just turn that back down to 25. So I literally overcooked myself. Anyway, I felt that before I actually overcooked myself, of course. But it just reminds me to slow down, read the instructions. Some of you will probably do that. You'll rip into a box that you've got to put something together, and instead of reading the instructions, you'll just go and try and put the thing together. And it actually takes more of your time because maybe you break something, then you've got to order another piece and wait that long, or you put something where it shouldn't go and it takes a long time to pull it apart. And you're like, right, I'm just going to read the instructions And you realize that if you just had slowed down, taken 5 minutes to read the instructions, you would have been done an hour ago. And then my last story. This is a coach that I'm working with shared this story, and it just reminded me of how a couple of things, like I used to talk to my osteo clients like they were cake, and especially if they were a little bit low on iron or some sort of mineral vitamin, I would say, well, it's like you're a cake. You need all the ingredients to be healthy. So if you're missing a bit of this, then your cake is not going to cook. If you miss the pinch of baking powder, then your cake's not going to rise. So you need all the bits and pieces. However, the cake analogy, it's more about cooking it. And it is when you want things to be done fast. So you read this cake recipe, you whip it up, maybe you like smudge together a few of the steps in the recipe, and then you chuck your cake in the oven. And it tells you to cook it for 1 hour at 180 degrees. But instead you think, I don't have time, and maybe I could do this a little bit better. I'm just going to crank the oven up to 250 degrees, and maybe I'll put it in there for half an hour. And we all know that that doesn't work. And maybe you have tried this. Your cake gets burnt. It is not great at all. And you have wasted a whole bunch of time because your cake is burnt on top, it's smudgy on the inside, you can't eat it, and now you've got to go to the supermarket and buy a cake, or you spend all that time making another one. So we need to recognize that someone has come up with the system, the structure, the recipe, and they've given us evidence that this recipe actually works if you follow the instructions step by step and you let it cook at 180 degrees for 1 hour. Yet we think we can do it better. We add in substitutes and different ingredients. We crank the temperature up thinking that this is going to be done faster if I turn the dial like I did on that mat and almost cooked myself. You turn it up and you overcook the cake. You don't trust that this recipe was actually right. You open the door all the time to check on your cake, or if you're cooking a souffle, you know that it's going to deflate. So you need to follow the steps and trust that if you follow this, if it feels right, if you follow this 180 degrees, 1 hour, and you be patient, and there's nothing wrong with your oven, your cake is going to come out like it looks like in the recipe book. So don't try and speed things up. Now, hopefully you're getting that all of these analogies are the same for personal development work, any emotional work you're doing. In case you don't, let me think of, what am I up to? A fourth or a fifth example. So I'm definitely slowed down with my ankle. I am on crutches and I wheel myself around my kitchen on an office chair and my leg up on a stool. And I have definitely slowed down. Before Christmas, I burnt so much food on the stove. And before Christmas, it's been for the last few years, I constantly burn stuff on the stove. I put something on and I think, I'll watch this. I'm going to crank it up to 9, the highest setting on the stove, and I'm just going to boil the crap out of it, heat it up. Now, most of the time what happens is I get distracted after 30 seconds and I go on to the next thing. And my soup is non-existent. It's burnt to a crust on the pot. My husband won't clean it for me. So then I have to scrub this damn pot for half an hour to get the stuff that's burnt onto it off. Or the smoke alarm goes off, or I don't get to eat very healthy because I've burnt my food. So it's not uncommon for Violet to come in and go, Mum, your food's burning. And maybe some of her lunch is gone as well. So when I'm home alone at the moment and I am quite enjoying it, I'm cooking my food. And because I can't run from one end of the house to the other, I'm being very mindful and present with cooking my food, and it's very enjoyable. And I'm very pleased to say that I have not burnt my food. So I have actually lost time trying to do things too fast, trying to push, trying to get it done quickly. So this came up in the vision workshop where we're talking about intentions and manifestations, and I'm taking people through some structured questions and exercises. This is the masculine aspect. And then we're having all the energetics, the magic, the flow, and all the cool things in between coming up. So another part of this is masculine. They're doing the exercises. They're answering the questions. And so many people say, oh, but when is this going to happen? How am I going to do this? And they get caught up in all the technicalities and all the fear starts to come in. And this is where I say, you set the intention, you be really clear about it, and don't push, don't try and get it done faster, because I think we've all experienced times when we're like, wow, I'm glad I didn't say yes to that opportunity because it opened the door for something else. Or I'm glad that, or, something happens, or we get an injury and it takes us out and it just takes a little bit longer. There are some things with intentions and desires that you have that are subject to timing. And I hope that you have experienced this. And maybe you have been waiting years for something to happen. Other times, you're very good at setting intentions and that thing lands for you within a few days or weeks or a couple of months. But sometimes the process of personal development, quite often, and emotional release processing will take time. And sometimes we don't know how long it will take. But the more you push, the more you try and do things fast, that energy, that masculine energy of doing, pushing, can actually repel things away from you. And feminine energy is all about receiving. So yes, take some practical steps and take action. And then this is where I say, put it out to the universe and trust. Surrender to the process. Declutter your space and allow things to come your way. So I hope my personal stories help you understand masculine and feminine energetics, to not push, that things will get done, and where can you let go of the timing and trust. So just a reminder again that this next Thursday, the 13th of January, which will be the Wednesday, 12th of January for States, Canada, UK, anyone in Europe. Thursday, the 13th of January, I am holding my live release masterclass. And I will be taking you through the step-by-step release process, the verbal dialogue process, and talking about all the ins and outs of stored emotions and all the fascinating bits that happen in between. So if you have been to one of these masterclasses before, it is not a pre-recorded version. My work is always evolving, so I make tweaks, I have little additions to share with you. And of course, any of you who are willing to ask a question on the Zoom call, there's going to be new questions, so I'll get to answer them again. So the release masterclass, you register at theartoflisteningtobody.com/release, and you'll get your Zoom link, you'll get all the time conversions. So please don't message me asking me the time conversions. And yeah, jump on the Zoom. There will be a replay, but for any of you who are thinking about continuing on with the 6-week course, this will open on that day as well. And there will be something shared in the chat for you, only those who are live, if you would like to come on board the 6-week course, which starts in February. There are people very keen already, ready to sign up for it. This is my only course where I teach the emotional release to non-practitioners. But before I dive into that, because I will probably share with you on a future podcast, just sign up for the masterclass. It'll be good. and you can learn more about that work and interact and ask me any questions. So I look forward to seeing you there. Make sure you register. Feel free to share this link with your friends. This is open to anyone and everyone. See you later.